Welcome to another Coffee with Samso, where we speak with ASX companies and the guys who lead the companies and to tell the stories. We're here back at the UWA club here in Crawley, and today I've got Ian Murray here from Matador Mining. The code is MZZ, and they've got a story that's in Canada. We've had Matador, different people talking to us about the story. I finally got the main man here, Ian. Welcome.
Thanks, Noel.
Look, Ian, it's a big story, and I know you've come from good pedigree in these kind of areas. Maybe just so that the viewers get a sense of who you are, and then maybe just where Matador is now.
Yeah. So me personally, I'm originally from South Africa. Moved to Australia in 2005. I've been in the gold mining industry in South Africa for about 10 years as CFO and then managing director. Got involved in Australia when I arrived with a junior company called Electro Mines, which we renamed Gold Road Resources. Discovered the Gruyere deposit, which is now 6-7 million ounces, and a company that's well over $1 billion. I retired from that in 2018. And then have joined a number of boards as a non-exec, but with Matador I was approached to become an executive. I had a look at the prospectivity, where they were, the lack of exploration, the size of the strategic land holding that they had, and I was like, wow, this is a great story waiting to be unlocked.
Yeah, I mean, this is Gold Road number 2, effectively. We sort of had a discussion prior to starting, but 120 kilometers of mineralization. I mean, you could say 120 kilometers of potential mineralization, but you can see the style of this kind of system. You're very likely to get that kind of length, right? So when we spoke earlier with Warren and things like that, you know, the geology was where it was, and I can see from your presentation you guys were going to do a massive drill program. Can you give us an update on what's happening on the ground? So your project is in Newfoundland,
yes, on
the eastern side of Canada.
Yes.
So yeah, can you just give us an update on what's happening there?
Yeah. So you're right. The project's in Newfoundland. It's off the east coast of Canada. It's a big island. The population is only 500,000, so it's a big island, but very sparsely populated. It's very prospective. However, exploration has only really occurred there in the last few years. So the benefit for Matador shareholders is Matador went in there early, picked up tenement there, and we've got the strategic land holding on the Cape Ray Shear. You talk about our 120 strike kilometers, but on that same shear, a further 50 kilometers further north, Marathon Gold's got their Valentine Lake project, which is 4.8 million ounces. So as a shear zone, we've got 840,000 ounces. 120 kilometers to the north, there's 4.8 million ounces, and there's no exploration in between that. So last year we kicked off what we called a 45,000 meter drill program. In the summer season last year we did 20,000 meters of that. We're currently busy with our winter drill program, which will be up to another 4,000 to 5,000 meters of drilling. We'll have a break just to let the snow melt and the water run away. We'll come back and then start our summer program for 2022, which is likely to be another 20,000 to 30,000 meters of drilling. So big drill programs and a systematic rollout of the exploration strategy, which hasn't been done before in this area.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I think of what you guys have, I think of those massive deposits that sits around the Alaskan belt there, sticking with North America, because we don't see a lot of this massive stuff in Australia in terms of the multi-ounces, like 20 million ounces, or you know, things that you hear more in like the PNG and places like that. How do you take? Obviously, you've been very successful with Gold Road, and they've done that. You know, sort of the 6 million ounce sounds like chicken feed compared to those guys. How do you picture that? I mean, could you see this as bigger numbers? I know it's postulating, but could you see it that way?
I think gold exploration in Newfoundland is too early to say what could be there. What we do know is that you've got Marathon Gold with 4.8 million ounces, and they've got that in a series of open pits along the Cape Ray Shear. The largest deposit there is about 2 million ounces. So you've got a series of, they describe it as a string of pearls, so a series of open pits that add up to 4.8 million ounces. What we're finding on our system as well, the 840,000 ounces is in 4 separate deposits, similar to Marathon, the string of pearls, where you've got a series of open pits that'll be mined. Further to the east on Newfoundland, you've got Newfound Gold, which has got a market cap of $1.3 billion, but no resources. But they're hitting something very different. They're hitting 3 ounces a ton in shorter strike length systems, whereas ours are flat-lying, close to surface, flat-lying structures with stacked loads. What they're finding further east at Newfound's area are these higher grade systems, but the strike continuity hasn't been proven up yet. So what could Newfoundland host? Who knows? Let's all explore properly. Our focus is building up to a minimum of a 10-year mine life, minimum of 100,000 ounces of gold per year.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of when you guys have obviously early stage and you're looking at your core and you're postulating on systems, do you see a consistent style, or are you guys seeing a bit of this and a bit of that?
Yeah, we've got the central zone, which is 500,000 ounces of gold, and that's hosted in a completely different system to Window Glass Hill, which currently is 250,000 ounces of gold. But based on what we've discovered last year, we believe Window Glass Hill granite, the host structure, is much bigger, and therefore the mineralization within that will be much bigger than the current 250,000 ounces. But it's a totally different system to what we've got a few kilometers away at Central Zone. So you're right, it's varied. It's a typical shear zone where Window Glass Hill is hosted on a granite. These stacked loads, flat-lying stacked loads, very shallow. Central Zone is in a graphitic schist, but you've got quartz within the graphitic schist. And then up at Isle of Mort, that's hosted in sediments. So 3 different deposits, 3 different styles. Every time we drill, we learn more, and that's the purpose of exploration. Drill, learn more, put the models together, test your theories, modify your theories.
I remember when I first started looking at Matador, and then you came into the play, I sort of saw that this was a gold road journey, because again, gold road story was that, you know, it's big acreage, big strike length. One of the things that I wanted to ask you was, when a lot of the investors and people look at numbers, grades, that, you know, we us geos love to throw those things out, you know, 20 meters at this, but they're fixated on this number that's called high grade, whereas a lot of the major mines are 1 gram. That Super Pit is, I heard, was sub 1, and these things work because we talk ounces, right? Ounces per vertical meter and things like that. So can you give us an idea? Like, obviously, you know, when people look at 1 gram dirt, they go, oh, geez, you know, 1 gram dirt. When they say 3 gram dirt, oh, wow, you know, or more, right? Or like you mentioned, Newfoundland is 3 ounce grade. But they need to realize that you need that 3 ounce grade to stretch, right? Sometimes they're just a pretty picture. Can you give us your take on that narration?
Yeah, well, it depends whether you have open pit mine or an underground. Open pit mine with shallow, close to surface open pit mines, you can mine a lower grade because the strip ratio will be lower. For an underground mine where you're going to put all that underground development in, you're needing a lot higher grade to fund all the capital costs that you need. So the key isn't the grade, but it's a combination of grade and strip ratio. So if you've got a low grade system, like go back to a Gruyere, 1.2 gram per ton, but it's a broad system, a couple of 100 meters wide, it's 1.9 kilometers long, and mining of that is an earth moving exercise because you're digging out this low grade material, but lots and lots of it with very little dilution, and putting that into the mill. If you've got veiny systems, you're going to dilute more with waste, so then you need a higher grade system, a higher grade deposit. So it all depends on your grade, the strip ratio, and your mining method.
I guess, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Veiny stuff looks really nice in those schematic diagrams, but there's a lot of waste in between, right?
Correct, yeah, and gets diluted down. So our average grade at Matador on the Cape Ray is 2 gram per ton. The first 4 years of the scoping study mine plan is 2.6 gram per ton. So for an shallow open pit mine, these open pits don't go deeper than 200 meters, so they're very shallow. Sorry, for now, obviously further exploration could push them deeper, but that's very profitable material. That gave us a payback of just over 1 year for the project. So very economic material. However, as long as we're growing the resource through the drill bit, let's keep exploring, but focusing on shallow open pitable material at that sort of 1.5 to 2 gram per ton or higher if we do get higher.
Okay. So, I mean, in this market, I mean, previous 6 months or 12 months is all about, you know, the lithium story and everything else, and a lot of the gold guys saying, you know, we've been sort of unloved and things like that. What is the market saying now for gold?
It's still very much, sorry, for physical gold, there's a war in Ukraine, we've got inflation around the globe. Physical gold price is good, 1900 when I last checked. So 1900 US, I think in Australia it's about 2700, so the gold price is good. You move from that into the gold sector, the gold producers. The producers Australian gold producers are trading at discounts to where they were a year ago. So there's no love there. And then you look into the junior explorers, there's even less love there. So it's a tough space to be, despite the gold price in US dollars and in Australian dollars being at very good numbers. So companies have to differentiate themselves with the quality of the work that they're doing, and that's what we've always focused on. Let's do the quality exploration work to make sure we get as much information out of every single drill hole as we can.
Yeah. I guess, you know, it's always about, you know, the great Warren Buffett always said that when the market's down, that's stock tax sell. You should be buying your stock that has quality. But it works the reverse in the market. When the market drops, everyone runs away. You know?
Yeah.
But staying on the same theme, you know, what are the guys that are supporting you? Obviously, you've done a good race, and there are supporters and there are believers on that side. And so, what are they saying, and how and what are the challenges that you are facing on the market at this point in time, apart from what you just described?
Oh, the biggest challenge at the moment is relevance. You've got lots of junior companies out there. In Newfoundland, as an example, there's 75 TSX listed companies on the island.
Oh, really?
We're the only Australian listed company with a presence on the island. Of those 75, only 4 have got resources. We're one of those 4. So you have to differentiate yourselves. So the challenge is getting market support, getting market traction, and being relevant for the investors. For any exploration company, there's always the ongoing capital raising. You raise money, you spend it in exploration. Eventually, the money gets spent, and you've got to find more money to keep the exploration strategy going. So we're fortunate. End of December, we had $11 million in the bank, so we don't have to rush out and raise money. So we can plan our exploration program for this year. But the biggest challenge is relevance, and compared to people in the lithium space, battery metal space, even the new energy, uranium space, all those companies are currently the market darlings. But never write off the gold stocks, because gold has been around for thousands of years as the primary currency. It'll always be around as the primary currency, and don't write gold off.
I mean, look, relevancy, like you touched on, is so critical, because the market, in my opinion anyway, has changed dramatically, even from 2 years ago, from 3 years ago. The kind of people who are investing are different. I mean, there's as you said, in terms of the market darling yesterday, there's a TikTok thing running around where you get a few of these, like Tom Hanks and I think it's Robert De Niro and all these guys sitting around, and they talk about how things will pass. If you think you're so great today, it will pass. If you think you're having a bad day, it will pass. And I like that, because you and I have been in this industry for a long time. We've seen many things pass, from highs and from lows, right? So I think that's a good point in terms of gold is the fundamental currency in some ways. Um, when we look at something like this, and you've described, you know, what you're doing, what you have, and things like, it sounds like a simple story. Is it a simple story?
The simple story is employing very good geologists like Warren Potma, and we had a guy in Canada, in Newfoundland, called Crispin Pike. They run the team. They're doing a very good job. So that's the simple part. What's in the ground? Every time you drill, you learn more. You don't know what's in the ground. You've got a model of what you think the geology is, and every time you drill, that model changes. So that's where it's not simple. So the important thing is having a good geological brain set, brains trust, that can debate the different models and different theories, and then put together an exploration strategy that tests that model.
I mean, 120 kilometers, and I saw your extension there. You might be reaching a bit more, but 120 kilometers is Kalgoorlie to Menzies.
Yes.
And if anybody who knows that area, the geology changes, the type of deposit changes a lot. Commodities change. So the question, well, you touched on it, and I wanted to ask was, you know, as you drill and as you look at stuff, you know, what are you guys learning? Are you learning anything that's different from, say, what Dave Warren has worked in other places, and going, oh, that's really interesting. That's, you know, where you thought, oh, well, if we found this means this. But has there been any sort of surprises in that geology?
I think there have been a number of surprises. So the first thing is, and this isn't new information, but what we have on the Cape Ray Shear is much younger than what you have in Kalgoorlie. The forces that created gold and the system there is only a couple of 100 million years old, not 1.5 or 6 billion years old that caused what we have in Western Australia. But as an example, the Window Glass Hill granite. A year ago, we thought it was 3 kilometers long, and we thought that the Window Glass Hill resource, 250,000 ounces, was the only gold on that system. We've now found that granite extends over 6 kilometers. Okay? And now we've found that there are actually 2 different types of granite in that system. We don't know what that means, but there are 2 different types of granites on that Window Glass Hill granite system.
Okay.
So the geos are scratching their heads like, what does it mean? Were there 2 different events, or was it the same event? What's caused this difference in the 2 types of granites in there? And could the 6 kilometers be 9 kilometers, 20? Who knows? We just don't know enough, because not enough baseload exploration has been done along that area, because all previous exploration was limited to where mineralisation outcrops at surface. There's been no testing under the transported material. So the geological maps are what our people are putting together from the drilling we've done and pieced together. So every time we drill, you learn more. Absolutely.
Sometimes that's not such a good thing, is it?
Well, it's challenging because models change, and from an investor perspective, you want to make sure that you're looking where you've got the highest probability of finding big gold systems.
Yeah.
You don't want to answer all the questions, you just want to find where the big accumulation of gold on the system.
Yeah, I know, it's one of those things. I guess, you know, are there any met issues that you can see or think, or that, you know, sometimes met issues is an issue, but it's actually not an issue? So we've done a significant amount of metallurgical test work. So we did the scoping study and we did met test work for that, and that gave us 94 to 95% recoveries. Since then, we've done additional series of metallurgical test work, and that's come back with the same 94, 95, 96% recoveries. Consumption of the additives is low. The residence time is modest. There's nothing complicated with the met process that we'll have at Cape Ray. It'll be stock standard, similar to what we have in Western Australia at most gold mines. I mean, going back to your geology and finding everything new when you drill, has there been anything that's that you found and you said, you know what, this is maybe what we should be following? Is there something like that? Or is it still too many question marks?
No, we've got a lot of. So we flew the Aero Mag last year. So over 40 strike kilometer area out of the 120, so 1/3 of the area. We flew detailed Aero Mag, 30 meter space lines, 25 meters above the ground. The highest resolution Aero Mag ever done. From that, we've identified a number of targets within this 40 kilometer area. So the one, Benton, which we knew about before, previously there were rock chip samples from boulders up to 180, 190 gram per ton, which is incredibly high. But the only drilling that had ever been done there was straight under the boulders. So the previous explorers hadn't worked out that the rock chips are in the boulders. Boulders have been transported by glaciers. Where have they come from? So that's the one thing that's jumped out to our team is, well, let's identify where these boulders have come from. The second area that's jumped out at us is up north Malachite Lake, or north of the 40 kilometer strike length. Malachite Lake is where the Cape Ray Shear bends. You can see it clearly in the mags, the bend, and then the cross-cutting structures and the tertiary structures there. And it's an area that's never been tested. It's 12 kilometers long by 4 kilometers across. A massive, massive area that when you look at the structures, the geologists get very excited as one of the most exciting structural targets on our belt, and it's just never been tested before. So these are the sorts of things that we're finding by doing the systematic work, but we're having to balance that together with resource growth, and that's why for the next year we're going to have one dedicated drill rig at Window Glass Hill Granite, because we think that's the low-hanging fruit where we can get significant resource growth, but the other drill rig will be chasing up these regional targets.
Okay. I mean, I guess, a question a lot of people may ask is, Cape Ray is a huge project. We've talked about it, 120 k's. Do you think Matador can do it justice?
I think the long-term strategy for Matador is, let's get from the central area where we are exploring now. In that area, let's find enough material to give us the minimum 10-year mine life, minimum 100,000 ounces, and get that project developed, and then the cash flow from that project can then fund ongoing exploration of the more regional areas, and obviously repay debt, but also give a return to shareholders. So I get asked the question, why have I chosen 100,000 ounces per year and 10 years? And it's just gut feel from experience that I have in the industry. 10 years will get you good competitive debt, low cost debt, which benefits shareholders. 100,000 ounces a year at the operating cost that we forecast from the scoping study will generate significant free cash flow, sufficient to pay back the debt quickly. As I mentioned before, just over a year payback period, together with cash for exploration plus a return for shareholders. So that's what I see as the long-term strategy, that what we have along the 120 strike kilometers, plus we picked up an additional tenement area called Hermitage further to the east. But given the exploration potential of this area, I think we could end up with a number of mining hubs at around, if we get each of them to a minimum 10 years, minimum 100,000 ounces, we could have 2, possibly 3 separate mining operations across these tenements. So that's our strategy with the company. Let's get to the first one and then look at developing it, and then look at exploring the more regional areas to then hopefully discover the second one and possibly third areas. Yeah.
I mean,
so
I guess
this is a real, what we hold is a real company maker.
Yeah, no, as you're describing, I'm thinking, that makes complete sense, and it's feasible because instead of a company like even Northern Star's reaching cross continents to keep the operations running, right? Whereas you've got effectively 120 kilometers of strike to play with, which is, in our view, it's somewhere between Kalgoorlie and Menzies, right? Yeah. You got all these little pots, call them pots or mining hubs.
Yeah. So I'll just go back to what I said at the beginning. You've got Valentine Lake, or Marathon Gold's Valentine Lake, 4.8 million ounces, and you got us 840,000 ounces, and there's a 120 kilometer gap that's never been tested, and it's on the same structure.
And I think that the key is that when you look at a map, those are just 2 dots.
Yes.
And you've got 840,000 ounces over 4 potential pits.
Yeah.
But when you look at a map between those distances, it's just 2 dots.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm trying to get at. It's a lot of people out there don't get that. Being a geo, when you go out there, he goes, "Oh, you just go out there and collect this thing." He goes, "Well, why do I need to be there for 4 weeks?" You know, but it's
a big area.
Big area, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, coming to Hermitage, is that just still an early stage pickup and looking not part of the bigger picture yet?
So we picked up Hermitage last year, so it's a brand new pickup for us. It's never been explored for gold. It was explored a few decades ago by base metals companies looking for big base metal systems, which they didn't find. However, what they did find were the base metal elements which tie in with our gold pathfinder elements. Okay. So now that we know that these are the base metals associated with gold on the Cape Ray Shear, and we know that those base metals are in the Hermitage area, Hermitage also has the largest antimony anomaly on the island. And we know gold is associated with antimony as well. Yeah, it's a very exciting area for us. We're not going to get into it this year, but hopefully next year we can get in and do first pass testing.
Okay. Well, while we're sort of on the topic of commodity outside of gold, any little pegmatite dikes flying around? You get lots of granites, you know.
I keep saying to the geos, just find a bit of lithium and then we can have the Shepherd's go on a good run, but no. They focus on finding gold and related commodities,
I'm sure everyone who has been watching from the south, two types of granites. Ooh, where's the pegmatite? Where's the pegmatite? You know, I think that's the throwaway line today, right? Is that a lot of people don't realise pegmatites are numerous, but they're not all carrying what you'll hope it to be. But you know, when we spoke about Newfound gold and things like that, and it's high grade, could you see, you know, one of your mining hubs being that style as opposed to the the lower grade stuff?
So you got the Cape Ray Shear, which runs up through Marathon Gold, and that tends to host the lower grade, larger bulk systems. So lower grade as in sort of 1.5 to 2 gram per ton. But then you've got Newfound Gold. So from the Cape Ray Shear, there's a second structure which comes off there, goes through Hermitage, and then bends up north and goes up to Newfound Gold. So Hermitage could have high grade systems. We don't know. The Cape Ray system may have high grade systems. We don't know until we explore it. Chances are we're going to get more of what we found and what Marathon's found. But certainly on the other splay, which goes through Hermitage and then up to Newfound Gold, that could be totally different systems.
Yeah, I think when you mentioned antimony, my mind was thinking, they don't only come with high grade gold. But now that you've talked about that, it makes
and it's never been that area's never been explored for gold.
I think
and that's Newfoundland. It's only been explored in the last few years. Up until the 1980s, all the exploration tenement was owned by one family.
On the island?
On the island. It was only from the 1980s when they brought in the use it or lose it laws like we have in Australia. That family then had to go and do exploration JVs with other groups to retain their land holding. And that's why you've had exploration increasing from the 1980s. So if you compare to Australia, you've had exploration here since 1880s. South Africa's had gold exploration since the 1880s. The rest of Canada and the US have had gold exploration since those times as well. Newfoundland's only had exploration since the 1980s, and has only really had an uptick in the exploration in the last 3 or 4 years. So it's brand new, unexplored area, but in a Tier 1 jurisdiction, which you don't get.
I mean, I was going to ask the question, but you've answered it. Why there's so much work that's been done in other parts of Canada? Why not here? But you've answered that question. Recently, I was talking to a guy who runs a TSX company, and going back maybe 5 years or 6 years ago, a lot of the TSX companies were saying, oh, you know, there's just no traction, we're not getting any love, and all the marijuana companies are doing anything. So they're all looking, you know, what can we do here? Can we do a dual listing? Can we pump some projects in? And then we had our recent run and boom, and I thought this is universal, right? But apparently not. So, man, well travelled, and you know, what is the market comparison between, say, the TSX now and the ASX now?
So the TSX now for junior resources, or sorry, for resource stocks, is pretty good. Last year, I think the capital raisings that they did were very high, comparable with what's been done on the ASX. I'll just go back a few years when Matador picked up these tenements. The Matador team were looking for gold projects. They didn't like Africa, but they'd been burnt before with projects in Africa. Australia was expensive, so this is back 2017, 2018. Australian assets were expensive because all of our producers were doing very well. But in Canada, as you point out, Canada was going through that marijuana phase. There was no money for juniors. And so the guys that found this project picked up a project for about $5 million, put it into Matador, the shell, and listed on the ASX. So it was a phenomenal deal that they did at the time, recognizing cheap assets in other jurisdictions where the market would value those projects. However, since then, and we roll forward to today, you've got 75 TSX companies on the island. The largest cap one is $1.3 billion market cap. Marathon Gold, about 700 million market cap. So there's some companies on the island with very good market caps. We're Australian listed, and we get less traction with the investment market because our project's not in Australia, it's in Newfoundland. And thanks to people like yourselves, we get the message out there so people can become aware of what an investment opportunity it is.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's like we're living in some sort of hermit shell for the last 2 years, right? Yeah. And everyone's, and I get that, you know, there's so much uncertainty in early parts, and everybody still needs to earn a living. But when you look at mega projects like this, when I see it, when I look at it, you know, and I'm a long-term guy, I've sat in projects for 4 or 5 years. Whereas the guy that needs 4 or 5 minutes, it's not going to happen with likes of Matador. But those 4 or 5 minutes make them quick buck, but the 4 or 5 years make them bigger bucks, right? What sort of retirement fund kind of stuff. So it's a really interesting project, and when I see it, and I try to express to people talking about it, is that the two things that you need to look for is good management and technicals. That gives you the opportunity to make it big. When you talk to your peers, you've done a lot of shows and conferences. How is that receptive, or how is that being taken in by the guys that you talk to, or the guys that come to talk to you?
So if you look at our share register, we've got Franklin Templeton and CR Sentry on the register, who came into the last raising. They've backed the story on the back of management that they know and have invested in before, a good exploration strategy with the systematic rollout of the geophysics, geochemistry, and then the diamond drilling, together with one of the hottest jurisdictions in Canada. So people back the story for those three. So I'll add the third into it, which is the region. Where are you? And that's certainly what we're selling and what investors are backing. Okay.
To conclude, I guess, you know, we've touched on a lot of stuff, and which is fantastic. What is the 12 months outlook for investors? You know, what kind of news flow would they be expecting?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, we've got significant drilling going on. So we've still got 25 assays from last year still to come through the system. So there'll be news flow on the back of that. We've already kicked off our winter program, which we're probably a month in, probably 3 weeks into it now. And that'll be between 4,000 and 5,000 meters of drilling. So there'll be news flow from that coming through. We'll then have a short break and then kick off with our summer program, which will be more news flow. So there'll be constant exploration news flow coming from Matador. In addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, the window glass hill granite, which acronym WGHG,
I had to look that up when I was looking into your presentation.
That's a serious focus for us. We've had, on the margin of that granite, where the granite meets the sediments, we've been hitting, what, 32 meters at 2 grams and 40 meters at 1.5, and significant widths and grades on that granite contact, which is similar to what Red 5 have at Tarmula and what Marathon have at Valentine Lake. So that's going to be a serious focus for us. We've done a lot of drilling outside of the current resource already. When you look at our presentations, you'll see there's, within the Window Glass Hill resource area, there's a bright pink or orange number of dots. They're the high grades and widths. Outside of that resource area, there's another cluster of bright colors, which is of similar size. So that's a good base for us to grow that resource. So Window Glass Hill, a big focus for us. Regional exploration will be a big focus. Warren and the team are currently in Newfoundland running a series of workshops for the planning for the summer season. So yeah, there's going to be lots of exploration from Matador, lots of news flow, and in early 2023 we should have our resource upgrade.
Okay. So just to clarify, when you say summer season, you're talking about our winter season?
Our winter, correct.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Look, Ian, thank you for your time. Fantastic. You've been shortchanged today because normally we've been giving away coffees from Florence Drummond, who's represents the Indigenous women in mining resource, and we left it at home. So you're going to go home empty-handed.
That's okay, because I've never drunken coffee in my life.
Oh, that was
I'm one of the few people in the world that's never drunk coffee.
Okay, so it's been wasted for you. But anyway, Ian, thank you. Fantastic content. Loved it. I've been wanting to have a chat with you for a long time. I think you give good value to you know, Matador and our viewers, because you know it's all about educating ourselves out there. So thank you.
No, thank you. Always a pleasure to meet up and chat.